welcome to the Daily Surrender, a space for real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about what it truly means to live in alignment with God's design. I'm Jennifer Ragazzo, a soul-aligned wellness coach who is far from perfect and still figuring out this whole human experience, just like you. Here we talk about the messy, the beautiful, and everything in between as we learn to let go, trust more, and step into the peace and freedom that's already waiting for us. Let's dive in. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Daily Surrender. As most of my episodes are, this one is deeply personal and it's also deeply universal. I am actually recording today's podcast episode on Mother's Day, which really honestly was my motivation for today's message. I want to speak not just to the mothers out there who are listening in the literal sense, but to every single woman who has mothered children, businesses, communities, friends, partners, and in the process, perhaps forgotten to mother herself. For me, Mother's Day is such a special day. I absolutely love waking up and celebrating the sisterhood found in the divine mother that is within every single one of us. I love celebrating women. I love sending and receiving different messages from the women that are in my life who help me to be a better mother, who help me to be a better woman. So, giving you a little bit of backgrounds on me, this year is my 22nd year as a literal biological mom. I have 3 children. My eldest will be turning 22 in a few weeks. My middle son is 20 and my youngest will be 18 in June. Motherhood for me, I always knew I wanted to be a mother. From a very young age, I knew that I could potentially struggle to get pregnant with my babies. And whether that was plugged into my mind and programmed into my mind and I followed infertility or not, I have differing opinions on that. But throughout my 20s, I did struggle to get pregnant. And we went through in vitro fertilization to have our first 2 babies. I remember the whole process of leaning into motherhood, of wanting it so badly, of wanting it on my timeline when I was so young. My husband and I got married really young at 23 and 24 and didn't wait very long to start exploring motherhood because, again, I was told from a very young age that my endometriosis would probably pose an issue with getting pregnant. And when things weren't going my way, and my first in vitro cycle failed, I really learned a lot about surrender. I had to let go of control in so many ways. I thought that in vitro was me controlling what I wanted, and it was just anything but. And I learned during that season of my life at a very young age, actually, how to let go and turn the entire thing over to God. And our first cycle was such a disaster, and the second one could not have gone any better. And when I look back over it, I can see now how so much of that was me. It was me letting go. It was me leaning in and me allowing God to take over instead of me controlling every little thing. So 22 years of motherhood and multiple shifts in careers. I had stepped away from being a teacher in an actual classroom to be home with my children when they were really young, which was such a blessing. And as my youngest went off to school, I felt a calling inside of me to go back out into the world in just a little bit of a different way than I was within the home and help other women, help other people. And I went back to school for health coaching. For the past 12 years, I have been so blessed to work with hundreds and hundreds of clients who've come through my doors here, not just women, men too, but a lot of women. And I can share that women share a common struggle. We share this common struggle in letting go, in prioritizing taking care of ourselves. We take on the weight of the world very often. We put other people's needs before ours, which as a mom, we all know, any of us listening here who have been actual literal moms know that there are seasons where you have to sacrifice in that way. That little baby demands to be cared for and fed, and your life becomes caring for them and keeping them alive on their schedule, not your own schedule. But as time goes on, what can really happen to so many of us women is we lose ourselves and we function without boundaries. That's one of the biggest depletions of energy and biggest drivers I have found to be of dis-ease for us women. We lose focus and sight on what our purpose even is outside of caring for other people. So I've been really blessed over decades now between motherhood and coaching other people to walk alongside of others as they rise up. So I want to dive into that here today in the whole idea of burnout from over giving, from people pleasing, and from trying to do it all. For those of you who are not watching on YouTube, I'm using air quotes and some AI confetti just got thrown, but trying to do it all. And that trying to do it all and be it all for other people, that really is not what we're here to do as mothers. Each and every one of us, whether you are literally a mother or not, with that title and that label, we all have the divine mother inside of us. And the divine mother knows how to have solid boundaries. She knows how to fill herself up so that she can pour out. And we're going to talk about that here today. One of the ironies in my life, I smile as I look around my house at these little plaques, and I have picked up over decades of my 5 favorite Bible verse, be still and know I am God. And as a really young mom, I would buy them when I'd see them. And I have this little rock in my kitchen. It's got to be 25 years old now, or maybe 20, I don't know, something like that. And I've looked at it just hundreds and hundreds of times, lifting it up as a prayer. Like, God, I want to be still and I want to know that you're my God, but I don't even know how to be still. I over functioned. I burned myself out and to the ground. And I've had to learn what it is to really, really put up those healthy protective boundaries to avoid burnout. And today I can tell you confidently that I understand that very powerful verse that comes out of Psalm 46, be still and know I am God, from a completely different way, because God has stilled me through the pains of mothering and over mothering and over giving. So there's this realization for us as women that we weren't living, like, for me as a woman, I should say, that I wasn't living as a woman. I was surviving in a very hyper masculine model of worth that was really tied to productivity and sacrifice and depletion. So what I've learned and what I really help other women continue to reclaim for themselves is what it means to embody the good mother and the divine feminine in a way that is whole, that's empowered, and that's sacred. So let's talk about that a little bit more. And I want to talk about first the cultural conditioning of the modern woman. We've talked before on this podcast here about how much programming there is in the world. And we know that we're in it, but we're not of it. Yet how do we do this life being in this world? So the cultural conditioning for us women in today's modern society teaches us that a good woman is selfless. She's tireless. She's endlessly available. She wears the Wonder Woman cape with pride. She does all the things. And if you're a crunchy mama on top of it, you bake everything from scratch. You keep your children living in an organic bubble. You grow your gardens outside and you've got your chickens. My girls are young women right now. They're just bridging from childhood into young adulthood, and they're so cute. They're always sending me different reels from a lot of these young, they call them trad wives, traditional wives. And I love these women going back to the traditional way of being a housewife and a mother, except there's something in there still that I'm noticing and seeing. And that's, again, that good mother, that good woman. She is so selfish. She's tireless, again, tireless. Like she never tires. She does everything for everybody. We're taught that saying no is actually selfish. It's selfish to say no because, again, we give, right? We're givers. We're women. We're taught that boundaries are a rejection. So boundary is bad. So we don't put them up. We're taught that stillness is laziness. So if you take time to be still, to rest, to read a book for joy, to just sit outside in the sun for no reason other than to just be, then that's lazy. At least that's the conditioning that I took on. It took me so long and a whole lot of work to be able to be still. And I mean still as in guiltlessly stilling my whole mind, my whole being in whatever way that looks like. Yesterday, I took a nap on the patio, and even as I was drifting off into the nap, I still had to contend with a little tiny bit, like this little tiny shrapnel that will pop up here and there and whisper to me, you should be doing something more productive with your Saturday afternoon. We're taught that self-care is indulgent and it's something to be saved for special occasions, like a once in a blue moon massage, right? But here's the truth. When we chronically abandon ourselves in the name of serving others, we're not mothering, we're martyring. And that is not the way of the divine feminine. So, who is the good mother? The divine feminine power. The good mother archetype, and this applies to every one of you who are listening here who is a woman, who's a mother in one way, shape, or form. The good mother archetype is both strong and soft. She's fiercely protective and unconditionally loving. She's a giver and a receiver. That one right there, that's another one that I've really had to work and I'm still working on is the receiving part, because being a giver, I was so much more comfortable in that role than receiving. And I know so many women who struggle with that same idea of receiving just as much as they give. The good mother archetype is one who knows when to draw really close and when to release. And my goodness, does motherhood really, really teach us how to draw in and release. As my children are, again, all entering into young adulthood, I've had to really, really lean into what that is. And as a coach and working with people over the years, I can become so protective over and invested in my clients' journeys. And the journey is theirs. It's not mine. I'm just blessed to be guiding them along the way. But knowing when to let go is part of being a good mother. A good mother is a woman who pours out, but only from a full cup. The divine feminine embodies intuition over logic, flow over force, receptivity over control, nourishment over depletion, wisdom over information, and being over doing. The divine feminine doesn't hustle for her worth. She remembers it was never lost. And now, my friends, if you're hearing all of this and you're like, oh my gosh, seriously? I am failing. I'm not getting this mothering thing right, this divine feminine thing right. My friends, you are not alone. I feel you. I hear you. It's a daily walk, isn't it? It's a daily surrender. Like when we feel ourselves leaning into force more than flow and it doesn't feel good, we get to choose. Are we going to continue that or are we going to release it and go back into flow. When we feel ourselves depleted, are we going to choose to continue to perpetuate that? Or are we going to choose to pause and say, all right, here's my opportunity to replete, to nourish myself? And what is it that I need to nourish myself? So I am not sharing any of this today, the ideal divine feminine or the ideal good mother archetype with you to make you feel like you're failing at all. It's our model. It's the model that God invites us into so that we know what is good in our divine design and we can lean into it. We can choose it. We get to every single day, we get to surrender into what is good. So I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent now, and I want to talk about one of the most divine archetypes that we have available to us for the divine feminine, for the good mother, and that is Mary. That's Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus, the sacred mother archetype for all of us women. She is one of the most powerful and timeless archetypes of the good mother. So why not talk about her? It's Mother's Day today. You're listening to this after Mother's Day, but let's lean in. So Mother Mary, she's not just the mother of Jesus. She is the embodiment of divine unconditional love. She is the sacred feminine presence who knows what it means to love deeply and suffer silently, to hold space for a child that she could not control, to witness pain without closing her heart, to embody grace when her world was breaking. Mary represents the mother who says, I will stay beside you. I will love you without needing to fix you. I will be the sanctuary when the world feels harsh. And yet, she also represents the woman who said yes to something bigger than herself. She surrendered to the unknown. She bore the weight of being misunderstood. She carried life in her womb and gave it to the world. She's not weak. She's not passive. She's resilient. She's fierce. She's holy. When we tune in to the energy of Mary, when we lean into the lessons that she provides for us, we remember what it is to hold with compassion, to release into trust, and to love without condition, but never without discernment. I want to repeat that. It's to love without condition, but never without discernment. The discernment is so important. Her presence reminds us that we don't need to do it all to be worthy. We don't need to rescue others to be lovable. We don't need to lose ourself to prove our devotion. We are allowed, ladies, to be soft. We are also allowed, ladies, to be strong. We're allowed to be still and to move. And above all, we're allowed to receive love as much as we give love. For those of us who never felt mothered, who have tried to be everything for everyone else, who carry grief, guilt, or longing around our role as perhaps a mom, a literal mom, as a daughter, Mary invites us to remember that we are helped, we are loved, and we're never, ever alone. So as you reflect on Mary, and you can do this at any given day, let her be your guide back to yourself, back to the sacred, radiant, rooted woman that you have always been, my friend. So why is all of this so hard? We have the model of the good mother for us, the model of divine femininity that's been provided to us. We have that. So why is it so hard? I talked a little bit ago about the cultural conditioning. So we have that. We have the cultural conditioning that good women give, right? So from childhood, many of us are praised for being helpful, for self-sacrificing, for being low maintenance, good girls. We internalize the rule that our value equals our output. So when love or care comes back towards us, an old alarm will sound. That's the amygdala in the brain. And it sounds going, am I allowed to actually keep this? Or do I have to earn it to be able to receive? Do I need to earn it back? I can tell you that that has been a big struggle of mine in my walk on growing and evolving as a woman in all roles in my life. I have struggled with the whole concept of receiving, and honestly, like receiving without having to earn it. And control for a lot of us women, and fixing and being on the other side of like, I'm going to be the giver. I'm going to be the one who oversees everything. There's a perception there of control, and it's comfortable. It's so much more comfortable than the receiving role, right? So in the control mode, we feel safer than when we are vulnerable. Receiving opens us up to a little bit more vulnerability, right? So giving lets us steer the exchange, and receiving asks us to soften, to trust, and to be seen in our need. That could be really hard for us women, can it? For women who've endured things like betrayal, abandonment, inconsistent caregiving, staying in the giver role feels like armor. It becomes the armor that we walk around with. And I help my clients with this in so many different ways. Sometimes it's going really deep into a freedom journey where we use MDMA to lift the veil because their armor is so darn thick. They don't even understand where it all came from in their own conditioning, but their amygdala gets sounded over and over and over again anytime that that armor gets threatened, and anytime they feel that they're going to exist without it. And I know for me on my journey, I have had to go really, really deep to work on understanding my armor and work on removing my armor so that I was not always in that giving, controlling state, so that I can soften into my divine femininity and also become a receiver. We also walk around with this unworthiness and imposter narratives that are conditioned from our society as well. There's this deep subconscious script within so many of us that whispers, others deserve abundance and mine comes last. Like I must give to everyone else first, right? And they deserve it. So everybody else deserves the best. And I'm the bottom of the list. And so what this narrative is really truly rooted in is a narrative of unworthiness. It's a narrative that says that I am not worthy of receiving. I'm not worthy of receiving the best. So when people compliment us, compliments get deflected and offers of help get rejected. We push them away. Nope, I've got it. Oh, please don't compliment, like complimenting me. I'd rather compliment you and build you up. And in doing that, we postpone any pleasure around receiving, right? It's like, no, I can't have the pleasure. You have the pleasure. This is the nervous system literally flagging the receptivity as danger because it conflicts with the self-concept of not enoughness. This here, like this, what I'm sharing, I have seen this in hundreds of women that I've worked with over the years, and I've lived it myself. This was me. I walked around from childhood, from very early in my childhood, with the unworthiness wound and narrative being played, the I'm not special, I'm not good enough. I am special though when I give to others. I am special when I'm fixing. I am special when I'm people pleasing. And that for me, those narratives that I played out, that ended up becoming the things that led me into burnout, that led me to the place where my knees hit the ground. You can go back and listen to previous episodes. Last week's, I got a little deeper into my own behind the scenes where I had my dark night of the soul moment where my knees hit the ground and I cried out and I said, I can't do this anymore. I have got to figure this out. I don't understand where it's even coming from, but this is unsustainable. And my body literally was on fire, screaming at me to please write new narratives, Jen. I walked around as a martyr, and that is another thing that is very culturally conditioned into to us as women. It's the martyr mythology in a lot of different faith traditions. The feminine virtue celebrated most loudly is sacrificial service. And we look at Mary and we will focus very heavily on her sacrifice, right? We focus on that. See, there's a shadow side to that version of the story. And the shadow side says, the holier I am, the emptier I must be. So we confuse depletion with devotion. So if I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving, and I self-sacrifice all of myself, that will make me holier. And yet the holier we become in that self-sacrifice, the emptier we become. And so what are we pouring from? What are we giving from? We are giving from a place of depletion, not a place of devotion. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit here on this episode. So hang with me on the importance of making sure that we're giving from a place of devotion and what that actually looks like in a healthful way. We also have a fear of being indebted. So accepting a gift of anything, it could be a compliment, it could be assistance, it can trigger anxiety about future obligations, especially for women who are taught that relationships are scorecards, that they're transactional, that if we let someone else pour into us, what are they going to expect of us later? So if we're already functioning from a place of depletion, that doesn't feel good. My goodness, somebody else complimenting us, offering to help us, giving to us, immediately the amygdala sounds the alarm and says, no, that is dangerous. You cannot accept, because if you receive, you then are going to have to give, and you've got nothing left to give. My goodness. But all of this, when we walk around and we perpetuate these narratives and we live from them, there's a big cost, my friends, a huge cost. And it's the cost of one-way giving. This is not the way of the healthy divine feminine. Resentment blooms here. Chronic outpouring without pouring in breeds the silent frustration that eventually leaks out as irritation, snappiness, yelling at the people we love, walking around with a really discontent, heavy energy. And it can lead to burnout. It did for me. I burned myself to the ground. I was not my best self as a mother. It was being reflected back to me by my own children, which was a huge motivation for me to work on myself because I want better for them. I do not want what I have carried for my children, but I had to learn that I was modeling for them because little eyes, little ears, they soak up so much more of what we be and what we do than what we say. And I was getting really resentful and they could see it. And it was not modeling for any of them, especially my daughters, what it was to be a healthy, divine, feminine woman. Intimacy stalls. So in a partnership, I can speak to this as well. In a partnership, when one partner is always giving and giving and giving and blocking receiving. So our partners might be trying to give to us in a way that is in alignment with who they are. But if we're rejecting that, because we're running these other narratives and we're always giving and giving and giving, and the other one is always the one receiving, we can't have true intimacy. True mutuality cannot grow. That connection between us and our partner, it stays really transactional because here we are as women, we give and we give and we give, but yet underneath we're really resentful and they're trying to give back to us, but we block it, right? And so over time, they stop giving to us. They're like, well, I mean, she's impossible. She's absolutely impossible to please. She's never happy. She seems to always be exhausted. So they stop trying. And I can say that started to happen in my marriage. And so much of that had to do with me, and it had to do with my unaddressed narratives that I was running and me living in a very unhealthy feminine state where I actually was taking on a lot of masculine in that. And in all of this, I modeled it for my children. I modeled for my children that in adulthood, we live exhausted because we must give and give and give, especially as women. And that love equals that self-erasure, right? So that right there was really unhealthy. And again, especially for my daughters. And so I've dug deep into all of this. There's nothing that I'm sharing here with you guys that I haven't explored and unpacked myself with a lot of humility and a lot of honesty. So how do we restore the harmony, the dance of the give and the receive? Let's talk about that, because when we can restore the harmony, we restore our divine femininity, and we go from being burnt out to deeply rooted and very radiant and living life in an abundant state. So number one, we reframe. We reframe receiving as generosity. When you let somebody else serve you, you give them the gift of significance and connection. So as you're listening to this, think about the last time that you gave to someone else and you served someone else from your heart, not from a sense of obligation or a have to, but it brought you so much joy to serve them and to give to them in whatever way. Didn't that feel good? So when you're blocking somebody else from doing that, you're robbing them of the opportunity to be able to receive the gift of giving. So healthy receptivity in and of itself is an act of love, and we might need to practice it. I know I do. This right here, what I'm talking about today, this episode is very much birthed from a process that I'm in myself. And I'm talking about it because every time I teach others or coach other people, it reverberates right back at me, because this really truly is just God speaking through me and my vessel, and it's going out to you and it's reverberating right back on me. I am right here with you in the practice of receiving so that I can step into healthy receptivity as an act of love. And we can practice it in micro receiving. So start small. Maybe you are like me, where you have been on one side of being the giver and the outputter, because that was where you were comfortable. That's where your nervous system got wired for safety and for predictability, right? And you're practicing. You're like, I don't want that anymore. I need more healthy balance in my life. So perhaps it's accepting a compliment. So when somebody compliments you, instead of deflecting, oh, no, it's no big deal. It's not a big deal at all. Thank you so much. I get it. I understand that I just cooked this huge meal for you, and you really enjoyed it, but it's no big deal. Seriously, like, enjoy. Do you want more? What if we just stopped and we said, thank you. I received that. Let a friend buy your coffee if she offers to buy your coffee. Don't be the person who's like, no, 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 no. I've got it. Oh, I'll pay for it. I'll give to you. Oh my gosh, I'm saying this and I'm cringing because that is this so been me. Like, I want to be the one to give, to do, to buy the coffee, to cook the meals, all the things, to think of the special gifts, to rate the cards. Please don't do it back at me, because that makes me so uncomfortable. But it's all because of this conditioning and programming. And I'm here for the dismantling of all of it, because I'm here to give and receive love. And when we give and receive love, we're allowing the divine love from God to flow in and through, in and through, in and through. So as we practice in the micro receiving, we can feel the stretch. We can breathe into it. We could stay present to it. So when you do it, really do it and pause with intention and reflection. You are rewiring safety around being cared for, my friends. That's rewiring the nervous system. Who would have ever thought that that would be some of the work that you show up for on your health journey, correct? I never thought of it. I would rather take a supplement, old me. But I'm telling you that this work here, this work is beautiful. It's sacred. It's holy. So set boundaries for yourself. And I like to call them this holy yes and holy no boundary. So boundaries protect our capacity. So giving energy is emerging from overflow, not obligation. So we want to make sure that when we're giving from a place of repletion. We're giving from a place of a full cup. We've often heard that analogy of we can't pour from an empty cup. Oh my goodness, but so many of us have tried. We're getting the last little drop out, right? But boundaries can signal to other people that your needs matter, and they actually invite them into that reciprocal care. So when we put up a boundary for somebody else, it's letting them know you're actually getting to help me care well for myself. And we're modeling for them how to do that too. Lack of boundaries is one of the biggest issues that people struggle with, that they live with, and from there, that dis-ease is created from. I can tell you that again from coaching hundreds and hundreds of people over the last decade and from living without boundaries myself. And at one point in my health journey, despite doing all the things, living really unhealthy. Like I was on fire behind the scenes because I had no boundaries. I couldn't give boundaries because of all these narratives that I bought into and that I took on. Our boundaries are sacred feminine medicine. They are not walls. They are sacred containers. When we reframe how we look at boundaries, it motivates us to put them up. They're not mean. A boundary says, I honor my energy. I honor my time, my value, and I trust you, whomever you're putting the boundary up with, to do the same. Without boundaries, we're leaking energy and we're living with resentment, which then depletes energy even more. My goodness, one of the number one complaints I get from women when they come here to work with me is fatigue. I always ask, what are your top 3 issues that are really paining you right now that you want to work on? And fatigue is almost always on the list of the top 3. And when we dig in, lack of boundaries across the board is one of the biggest drivers of that energetic depletion. Boundaries protect our sacred yes. When we set boundaries, we're creating space for presence, for pleasure, for creativity, for freedom. The boundary, my friends, is not punishment to others. It is devotion to yourself. I want you to write that after this episode on a note card, that boundaries are not punishment for others. It's a devotion to myself. I'm going to encourage you as you process all that we're talking about today in this podcast. And if anything is resonating with you and pulling at you, maybe convicting you, hit pause, whether it's on this podcast right now or after it, just pause in your life. And I want you to use your breath to practice that cycle of giving and receiving. So use your inhaling in to receive, and your exhale as part of your give. Can you see how we need both? We cannot just receive with the inhale, and we cannot just exhale. Neither is optional. Neither one is optional. Both are rhythmic. So a relationship, any relationship, will thrive with the same cyclical flow of receiving and giving. It's a receiving and a giving. I'm a visual person. So I envision in this receiving, in the inhale and the exhale, the receiving and the giving, I envision light, and that light going in an infinity loop. And it's receiving and giving from one person to another. And that's God in me, and say it's God in you. And it's light that goes out and in and out and in, and we're building one another up. We can't have one without the other. So I'm going to give you now a couple of self-worth truths to anchor yourself in. And perhaps these are ones that you write down on note cards too, if they are things that are really resonating with you and they're things that you're working on. So perhaps it's, my needs are not a burden. I am worthy of rest and joy. Receiving replenishes me so my love can keep flowing. And if you really need to embody that somatically, use your breath again, in and out, receive and give, receive and give. And after receiving, voice gratitude and notice how nourished you feel and how nourished the other person feels from that receiving and the giving. This positive feedback loop is training the nervous system to anticipate joy, not threat, in balanced exchange. One of the practices that I've brought on, practicing and rewiring my own nervous system. So I have to do the things, right? I can't just think about them or read about them or listen to them on a podcast. Then need to do. I have to take action, because the doing leads to experiencing, and the experiencing will lead to the transformation. And in all of that, I'm rewiring and refiring my own nervous system. So receiving is something that I am working on. It's something that I'm currently working on, and I'm going after it. I'm turning 50 in a few weeks, and I am determined to receive even on my birthday. That has not ever been easy for me at all, because it is so uncomfortable, because I was so wired with the narrative that I was unworthy, that I'm not special enough, that I'm only special when I give. I'm only special when I please other people. I didn't understand all that I now understand and that I'm talking about with you here today. And so one of my practices is to keep a list. I have a journal, and every day I write down gratitude for what I've received in that day. And the receiving could be provision in energy. It could be a compliment from a friend. It could be a literal gift that somebody gave to me. But I am taking note of all the ways that I'm receiving, and I'm offering gratitude so that I'm rewiring my nervous system to be able to receive. So, what does it look like to really healthfully embody the divine feminine? That's what we've been talking about here today. And embodying the divine feminine in this give and take, receiving, right? As much as we are outputting and pouring out to other people. So a woman in her divine feminine says yes from a place, again, of overflow, of repletion, not obligation. She honors her body here that she lives in, this house that we have to live in as we walk this earthly experience. She honors her body as a temple that is not a tool for performance. That's a tough one. We're going to talk more about these in detail on this podcast, I have no doubt. But I really wanted to introduce this concept to all of you here, because I know that's something we all struggle with. And I've helped so many people with their physical body over the years. And let me tell you, it is really challenging to even be able to prioritize taking the time to feed yourself healthy food when all of these other things are not in place. It becomes almost impossible. But when you work on really stepping into a healthy divine feminine state, everything else flows from there. It is an honor to care for the temple that God resides in, that your true self is in. And it helps in all of this. It's helping the divine feminine when we're coming from that healthy place. It helps us to create the space for rest, for healthy nourishment, for joy, for intuition. Remember, I told you that my favorite scripture verse, that long before I even understood what it meant, that had me seeking and leaning in, be still and know I am God. When we are really still and confident in who God is inside of us, and we're allowing ourselves to be who God created us to be, we are allowing ourselves as women to be the divine feminine, the giver and the receiver, the woman with healthy boundaries, the woman who honors her temple. She then can tap deeper into her intuition. And our intuition is our superpower. That is where the spirit moves and speaks. And we can really, really tap in when all of these other things are in place. The divine feminine is also unapologetic about her need for solitude, for silence, for support. She doesn't apologize. She does not apologize for taking up space. She does not apologize for putting up healthy boundaries. She does not apologize for having needs and placing her needs above the output, the pouring out, the caring of other people, because she knows that when she is well cared for, she is coming from a place of repletion and she can be her very best self. She trusts her cycles, her limits, and her longings. We are very unique as women. We are not men. We follow a lunar cycle, literally, in our feminine flow. Our needs, our moods, our energy levels, they change by the day. And we honor that. We have limits. And when we honor that too, we're honoring who God created us to be. So the divine feminine woman, she's soft, not because she's weak, but because she knows that her softness is sacred. I'm going to close us here with a love letter to all you women who mother in one way or another. To the woman who is tired, to the woman who forgets herself in the caring of others, to the woman who doesn't know how to say no, To the woman who is healing her mother wound while trying to mother well, you are not alone. You are not selfish. You are sacred. And it is time to come home to yourself. Let the mother within you rise, not to serve from empty, but to lead from fullness. A closing reflection for all of you here today is to ask yourself, where might I still be more comfortable giving than receiving? Take note. Just take note of it. Start to notice what you're noticing. Bring awareness. Make a list. And then how can a tiny act, remember those micro moments of receptivity, how can you find that tiny micro moment where you can be really receptive to receiving today? To saying yes to yourself today? How might your relationships blossom if you loved and allowed love to flow both ways, like breath? Inhale, exhale, give and receive. So reflect on those things here today. And remember that a river cannot refresh others if its source runs dry. Allow yourself to be watered, my friend, and every soul around you, I promise you, will flourish alongside of you. If this episode resonated with you, would you please share it with a fellow woman in your life who may need to reclaim her sacred yes? I would so appreciate not only your share, but if you could rate and review this podcast, leave a comment. That helps me to be able to get these messages out to more people. I also have a very special gift that I've just created for you. It is the Rooted and Radiant Guide that is a great starting point for you in this work. The link is in the show notes. You can just download it and you can get started on that yourself. For now, my friends, continue on your journey of daily surrendering, leaning in and saying yes to yourself. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.